CCU Orlando presents The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 50, Your Heart is Open and Loving, 7 Signs of an Evolving Soul, Part 2. And now, your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and happy Monday. My name is Cynthia Alice, and I am the host of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, and we are so glad you're with us. I'm here in 818 Studios with my very creative producer.
Hey, I am Dave Croft. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel.
We're proud of ourselves, man. We're almost at a year.
I know. We're at show 50. That's a milestone in and of itself.
50, the same as my age. 50.
Coming up on a year.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Coming up on a year, and I can't tell you what it means to us, all the people listening from all over the world. And we have, somebody just told me that, oh, man, I listen to the podcast 2 or 3 times because I'm gleaning the lessons. So I can't tell you what that means to us. It inspires us to keep doing what we're doing and I'll tell you, it's a lot of work to put together a podcast and we don't yet have a $10,000 budget. And so, but a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication to bringing you a quality show. And so much of that rides on the work that Dave does. He's just amazing in the studio and a great producer. So love to Mr. Croft over there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And I know he's pulling up a country that we're honoring today.
And even though it's not a country, we still do have listeners from Puerto Rico. So let's honor Puerto Rico today.
Yeah, Puerto Rico. Yes, Commonwealth of the U.S.
Yes,
exactly.
That's right.
Yes, so Puerto Ricans, I tell you, man, you guys really know how to have fun. When I was in Puerto Rico, it was a blast. And I fell in love with mofongo and tostones. So don't get me near those things.
I have to add, I don't know what those are. So I need to know. Is that a dance or food?
No, it's food.
Okay.
Is that a dance? Beep, 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 beep.
Could have been a style of music.
That's merengue.
Right.
Yeah, that's merengue.
Not to be confused with meringue.
Yes, right. Exactly. So we're having fun. And I was in Puerto Rico about 2 weeks after the shooting at the Pulse nightclub. And I don't know if you're in... I know if you lived in Puerto Rico, you knew about it because I was there a couple weeks after the shooting. It was just 3 years ago this month, as a matter of fact. Wow. And when I was there, I was actually performing a same-sex wedding on the island. And people, it was by the little cabins at Isabela. And so there were people from all over, they're mostly Puerto Rican people, but certainly people from all over there staying in those little beautiful cabins along the beach there. And as I walked to do the ceremony, people said, what's happening? And I said, I'm doing a same-sex wedding. And, not too long ago, that would not have been probably a frequently visited happening in Puerto Rico. But when the Pulse shooting happened, it was a Latin night. And so there were a lot of people from Puerto Rico there, sons with their mothers, friends together. And so I was told when I was there that the whole island went into mourning. At that time. And so there was a real sense of love, of fellowship, of unity among the people there that I certainly felt. So I bless you all and thank you for sharing your love with me and for that couple too that I married.
Yeah, absolutely. And Orlando has a big Puerto Rican population.
Huge.
Christchurch Unity Orlando has several Puerto Rican
families.
Congregants,
Families.
And those that were affected by the hurricanes. And,
and we did a lot of relief for the hurricane. And I personally, helped the Unity Church down there. Our church sent supplies and water and money. So we're connected with you. So even though we're not, we may not know one another's names, we're connected soul to soul. And I appreciate you listening and bless you on the journey and come on to Orlando. I say the more the merrier.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I want to do a shout out is so many Puerto Rican, both men and women, serve in the military. for the U.S., and so I honor your service. I honor your service. I've known many Puerto Rican families where every sibling served in the military. So we thank you for your service, and bless you on the journey. And again, thank you for joining us. The Puerto Rican, all the Puerto Ricans I know have a strong spirituality, a strong belief in the divine, and so many come out of Catholicism and are finding awareness, love, acceptance in a more spiritual. In a more spiritual environment. So even though Catholicism has a lot of beautiful spirituality, people are finding more and more to move into denominations like Unity and such as that. And we also honor you in your Catholic Church. If that's where you feel spiritually fed, we bless you on the journey.
Absolutely.
But we welcome you today anyway. Thank you, friends, for joining us all the way from Puerto Rico. That's awesome. So I should say bienvenidos. Bienvenidos. The show today for June 10th is the title of this show is it's part two. It's part two of the 7 Signs of an Evolving Soul, but the actual title it is point number 2 or part 2 called "Your Heart is Open and Loving." So I'm going to read all the 7 that we're working with for the 7 weeks, because by the end of the 7 weeks, I want you to be able to name all of these because of how important they are on the journey. So number 1 last week was you love yourself. Number 2 is your heart is open and loving. Number 3, you are aware that you are one with all. Number 4, your life is meaningful and has purpose. Number 5, you identify with the soul and not the body. Number 6, you seek opportunities to be vulnerable. Number 7, you feel comfortable in the unknown. You feel comfortable in the unknown. That might be the hardest one on that list.
Yeah, that's the one that's going to be prickly for me. I can tell you, right
for
right
everybody,
now. Oh,
for
yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, July 18th. I know I'm going to have to come to Jesus moment with
Well,
that.
and it feels kind of very Buddhist, that last one.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a Buddhist background, but I honor the tradition so much about non-attachment. So a review of you love yourself. We talked about that loving yourself is really about honoring who you are, honoring your feelings, listening to those feelings to see where there might be areas for you to work on it. We also talked about honoring the body and what the body needs. And Dave even brought up self-care and how important that is. And it is because we want to really support ourselves, doing everything we need so that we can be about, living out the journey, what we're here to do, living our purpose. And then we also ended with the idea of saying to yourself, when there's places you miss the mark, I love the part of me that, I love the part of me that feels, angry. I love.
And that got me thinking, it's called the evolving soul because it's always in process. It's always,
for
always
sure.
in motion. There's, I hope this isn't too discouraging, but it's probably, you're probably not going to arrive. It's not like you're going to get there and there's going to be ceremony and trumpets and,
a big sign.
Right, a big sign.
You made
it. Hallelujah. You chill out now, guys. Have a beer and sit down. No, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And if for whatever reason you feel like maybe you've either devolved or you slidden, or if you just got off.
What is that word?
Yeah, I know. If you just got off the path, it's okay. Just hop back on.
Yeah.
Just like the bees, just go about it and say, okay, from this point forward, we're doing this.
Yes.
And recognizing that in and of itself is part of the journey.
Well, that is evolving. I mean, if we mess up and we say to ourselves the same darn thing that we have always said, like, why did you do that? And why are you doing that to yourself again? And blah, 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 blah. That's just more shaming and blaming.
Yeah.
And if we kind of pick ourselves up and go, wait, I want to get out of this. And sometimes it's almost like, I don't know if you've ever tried to wake somebody up. It's like going, hey, wake up. That's what we're trying to do to ourselves. Hey, wake up, get out of this thing that you're saying to yourself. You are better than this. And so, yeah, it's kind of just waking up to that fact sometimes. That's a good point, Dave.
Yeah, and just being okay with that it's always in motion,
Yeah.
and at any point, you can start back.
Start again.
Yep.
Yes. And again, I will say probably each of the 7 weeks on this topic that anybody who says they've arrived, watch out. Watch out. If they're not ascended, they have not arrived on any of these items.
That's right. Yeah, and that's just like learning.
Yes.
If I'm learning a musical instrument or learning composition, the more I learn, the more I realize, oh wow, I've got a lot more to learn.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's part of it. It's part of the journey.
Yeah, and I'd kind of just come through some personal stuff, and I'm still working some things out. But this idea that we're talking about today, your heart is open and loving. Well, that's easy to say when when everything is going well. Yeah, my heart is open and loving every time I'm at church and we sing those songs, or I do my prayers, or I write in my journal, my heart is open and loving.
Yeah, we sing "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and I can just feel it. From
Yeah, or
every hand that I'm holding.
Like our friend Martha Creek says, what we're really thinking is, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with you.
Right.
Because, I'm mad as hell right now. So the idea of your heart is open and loving is that's the goal. That's what we're evolving into. It's what the situations that are coming up are asking of us. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to take a breath. Because now that you have heard these 7 things, this is kind of good news, bad news, but ultimately all good news. Now that you've heard these things, your soul goes, yes, I want to do those. And I know that because you keep listening and because of the comments we're getting about this material, that this is hitting right where we live. So now, as a situation comes up, and you want to close down, you can say to yourself, okay, you're going to say, I'm paying attention now. It's like you want an alarm to go off to go, okay, wake up.
All right, this is an evolution moment.
This is, evolution moment, exactly. Evolution moment here, pay attention. For God's sakes, do it differently, right? We want, when we want to close down, it's like something inside of us is going to go, oh, my heart is open and loving. Huh. Am I open and loving? So what happens is if somebody gets angry, or let's say we feel like we've disappointed somebody we really care about, our kids, our spouse, whatever it might be, that if we think we've disappointed somebody and they let us know, maybe by a shrug, maybe by a look, maybe they tell us, and we just want to go, we want to feel defeated and shut down. And so it is a learning to be able to say, let's say somebody says to you, I'm really disappointed. We can go, oh, I can really hear you're disappointed. I'm with you in that. Instead of, oh my God, I'm so sorry you're disappointed. What can I do different? How did I do it wrong? How can I do it better? And you see, because now there may be something to do. But first, rather than reacting, we keep our heart open and loving toward ourselves, toward them. If somebody is sharing their feelings with you and you go, oh, man, you're disappointed. I hear that. And I know from working with people and working with kids, most kids, if you hear them, boy, it starts to dissipate right away. But now, if there's something going on, if there's deeper issues going on with the people or whatever, then there may be a little something there to work with. But if you can stay open and loving, even if somebody's disappointed or mad, it's going to go a lot better. Because if somebody says, I'm disappointed, and you go, well, why are you disappointed? Okay.
Yeah, and
that's a defense. Yeah,
when you say shut down, that's usually what I do. But I don't go into shut down. I'm a worm place. I go shut down into a well, you're wrong kind of place. Mm-hmm. Which then like Shannon will get even more defensive about, and that creates this feedback loop.
Exactly.
And so
right. How are you disappointed? I just did all the stuff for you.
Yeah, I'm just this morning. We had been talking about going to everything there is to see in Florida, whether it's St. Augustine or
beautiful.
Clearwater or something, and just life happens, we just keep kicking the can down the road. But this morning she mentioned it again, and I could kind of sense the disappointment. It wasn't just, and my first reaction was, this isn't my fault. We're busy and we all work.
Yeah.
But I had to kind of listen through that. And even now, as I'm talking about it, I'm thinking, okay, all right, I need to hear what she's saying, which is she didn't want to just kind of push that on me, and she didn't want to lob some expectation to have it done, but there's clearly disappointment there. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And what I started to say, so it's actually possible for Shannon to be disappointed and you to just be with her in her disappointment, without doing anything about it.
Right.
Right. And then to say, and then you have an option. So if your heart's staying open and loving, well, then you can go, I know Shannon pretty well. I wonder what she needs right now. Shannon, I want to, I really hear you're disappointed, and man.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's quit talking about it and let's open the calendar and
let's just make it happen.
Let's put a date down instead
Exactly.
of just, it would be great to go to Tampa and see that, or Miami, or the Keys or something.
Yeah, right. And so often though, a lot of couples I work with do this. Sometimes somebody goes into fix-it mode and they just wanted to be heard. It's like, I'm okay. I just wanted to be heard on that. So the more we can stay open and loving, the better, and not shut down. And like you say, shut down can look a lot of different ways. It can be kind of a caving, or I learned this several years ago in my own therapy, that about myself from a family situation. My go-to was kind of to collapse. And so that I learned that's what it's called therapeutically, to collapse. I just called it, I just caved, but it was like there was a whole collapse in what I needed or wanted based on whatever anybody else needed around me. So it's something to hear what somebody needs around me and then still stay open and loving, and check with myself to see if I can do something about that, because sometimes you just have to let it be. Sometimes, this has been the hardest thing for me in ministry, is disappointing people. It's the hardest thing because, people have expectations that my life is perfect. It isn't. People have expectations that I'm always going to say hi to them when I see them, even if there's a group of people there and I might miss one or two. They get disappointed if I don't say the exact right thing they needed to hear that day. And so it's really taken a lot for me to, over the years, to really be okay with, it's okay if somebody's disappointed. It's okay if somebody goes to another church. Yeah. I bless them on the journey. And then if they come back, which I've had that happen too, then I'm ready to love them again. But if I close down, or, if somebody leaves and I'm going, well, why did they go, and what?
Take it personally or get defensive about
it.
Yeah,
exactly. And defense, I learned also in therapy, I learned that term, manic defense. Yeah, it's a manic defense. When we're really defensive like that, and pushing away, it's really just covering up the hurt, obviously, and our fear usually. So if we're in fear, our heart is not open and loving, usually. Now, I've heard it said you can't hold fear and love at the same time. Well, that's not true. You can, especially if you can be in the observer of a feeling nature, because you can have love and fear coexisting. You love your child, but you were fearful if they start to cross the street. Well, pulling them back is love, and having that fear is healthy. So I've heard people say, it's kind of a spiritual platitude. Oh, you can't hold love and fear. Actually, you can. Yeah. And if your heart's open and loving, you can learn to love yourself in your fear. And so this is what I'm speaking of when I say your heart's open and loving. It is, it's a wide range of things, but how I'm speaking of it right now is that if you have a feeling, if you have a reaction, even if that reaction's there, you can go, okay, whoa, I'm going to open up to this and see what this has for me, rather than shut it down. It's normal to have reactions. It's normal to have feelings. It's normal to even want to defend. That's what we all, kind of learned how to do. but we don't stay there and we say, oh, okay, my heart's wanting to open into this. What's happening? And I've talked before about this was in the soul work, in that soul work 1 and 2 that were in late May. I talked about this voice that was kind of up here, observing me, and saying, what's pushing you? What's that thing that's pushing you? So getting perspective on what the feelings are is what really helps you to stay open and loving. And if you close down, to open back up a little quicker, because you can see that your reactions based on an old idea, or maybe you're living as if something from childhood is happening right now. And so sometimes just saying to yourself, what's happening right now looks a lot like a situation when I was little, but it's not the situation when I was little. I'm a grown up now and I can take care of myself.
And it even doesn't have to be a situation from when you were little. It could have
Nope.
been a situation just 5 or 10 years ago.
Exactly, like a work situation.
Oh,
Because
preach that. Yeah. That the hurt that you're feeling right now isn't motivated by the same motivations that hurt you in the past. If
right.
it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's not the same. And that's ongoing.
Well, and again, saying your heart is open and loving doesn't mean I let everybody into my most sacred aspects of myself. It means that I know I'm good. It knows I know I'm aware. I'm loving towards others. It doesn't mean, though, that I don't set boundaries. And so sometimes when we talk about spiritual things, I think, and I've worked with several people over the years, both men and women, who were in abusive situations, physically abusive. And they would say things to me like, well, we're taught to love everybody, and it's like, loving yourself and getting out of abuse is loving yourself and the other person, because you're not letting them abuse you and you're not letting yourself be abused. That is love. But it's okay to have boundaries in your love, because that's healthy. You have to stay safe. You have to stay safe. So let me be real clear about that. Saying your heart's open and loving doesn't mean, hey, I'm a doormat. It means a number of things. And one of the things it means is that my goal, my desire, my intention is, if there is a reaction, that I can open up and I can remain as loving as possible without staying in this shutdown state and keeping the people that love me, away. So we're gonna pick this topic up. I can't believe we're already halfway through the show. I love talking about this stuff. Your heart is open and loving. This is part 2 of 7 Signs of an Evolving Soul. So we'll be back in just a few minutes.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. Christ Church Unity is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey.
Welcome back. Dave and I got off on some very interesting topics in the break, funny musician stories. So, but it always opens my heart, actually, to talk about that part of my life. Which brings us to an important point. To stay open and loving is so important, to do the things that bring you joy. And over the last few months, I realized that I had not been playing as much music as I really like to play. And you've heard me talk about a busy life and all of that, but honestly, I should never be too busy to play music, or that's too busy. And so keeping your heart open and loving, and again, going back to number 1 with you love yourself, there's something really important about being in your joy. Whatever it is that gives you joy helps keep your heart open and loving. If you love yourself, you know you're safe in yourself. And that's where I wanted to go a little bit the second half. So,
Scott, as you were talking, I don't know why I got this image.
Sure.
But I got an image of you like in a fish tank, like an aquarium, like a nice, and just swimming around, swimming. And, you need to eat. So you need your soul food, and I don't mean
Yes.
like chicken and waffles. I mean soul food. And so I just got the picture. You've had fish, I guess. At some point you take the little flecks and you kind of sprinkle them
Oh,
in.
yeah.
And they'll slowly, kind of float. But
Float.
it's up to the fish to find them.
Yes, it
The
is.
food doesn't come to the fish. So really hungry fish will go right to the top and they'll nibble to the top. But if fish aren't that hungry, then they'll let it just kind of float. I don't know. I just got this picture of like you, like just swimming around this aquarium and just recognize the little fish flakes as they float down. And you got to take a nibble every now and then. Otherwise, you're gonna end up upside down.
Burnout. Well, I talked about several shows ago when we were doing so much around mission and vision and living your dreams and all of that. And my vision for my life is I ignite soul evolution in humanity. I ignite, and that word ignite. I ignite soul evolution in humanity. And that's been a really important statement for me. And I also mentioned in that show that I learned from my sister, who's a homeopathic doctor, Nola Daniel, that my constitution is phosphorus. And what's phosphorus? It's burning that which ignites.
Yeah, it's what's on the end of matchsticks.
It's on a matchstick, exactly. So a characteristic of people who are phosphorus is to burn out, because we're like a bright light and then we can fade. And so one of the things I have to do is to make sure I do the things that I love, and that gives me so much more energy to then give away.
Yep.
Because so much of my work and my life is about serving others,
Yeah, we talk about in composition class. We talk about your muse. That's your creative well from which you draw
Yes.
ideas, and
Yes.
you can't just withdraw indefinitely.
Right.
You've got to I call it feeding your muse.
Yes.
You have to input into yourself so that you can withdraw at a later date.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So about being in your joy is really, really important. And some, I've had people say, well, I don't know what brings me joy. You better find out. You better find out.
I have a litmus test for that.
What is it? How do you know?
My litmus test is if you do something and before you know it, like 2 or 3 hours are gone. It's like the time vortex.
Yes.
If you just like look at the clock and you're like, whoa, where did 3 hours go?
Right.
Then I think that's a good indication that is something that feeds your muse, that brings you joy, that inputs into your soul.
Mm-hmm.
If that time vortex and you were just so in the moment that you did not even recognize the passage of time. That for me, I think that's a good test for things that bring you joy, things that maybe you should be putting your hands to either as a career or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been a good test for me.
Mm-hmm. That is a great one. It's like you lose track of time. You're so engrossed in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exactly what happens every podcast.
Oh, that's definitely what happened. Part 1.
It did. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, where did the time
That
go?
means we're doing something that is feeding our muse.
Yes. And it's interesting. I recently did a pottery class with a friend, and boy, that was the same thing. Because when I was a kid, I used to love to like dig up clay in the creek and make little things out of it and stuff. But she like really knows what she's doing, and I handmade 4 cups, and that's really, really cool. And it gave me a lot of joy, and I found myself, just chatting away and having fun. And it's like, oh, I've been here how many hours?
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be reading a book at Starbucks. It could be
Totally.
dancing lessons. It could be piano lessons. It
Mm-hmm.
could be singing on a Sunday morning in the church worship team or something.
Yeah, and again, there's something I keep wanting to say, and I keep saying little bits of it is, when your heart is open and loving, even if you have feelings, even if negative energy is coming towards you, you're going to be okay, because you're not getting love. You're not getting your own personal value, from how people treat you, but rather from the inside out. So even if someone's angry, even if someone's yelling at you, you can actually keep your heart open and loving, knowing you're okay no matter what, because you love yourself. So no matter what energy is coming towards you, it's like, I'm going to be okay. And I am going to get out of the way of this energy, but I'm not going to demonize them. I'm not going to say they're,
It just doesn't stick on you.
it's like, okay, that's where they are. I don't want to be there, so I'm gonna, work with my own self. So knowing you're okay in and of yourself, and feeling that is knowing your heart is open and loving. When you're trying to blame others, when you're trying to make other people wrong, that's a great indication your heart is not open and loving. And again, if your life feels like a drudgery, your heart is not going to be open and loving because you're not listening to the voice of Spirit. And that's loving yourself, again, is so important because if you love yourself, if you're being guided a certain way, guided to do a certain thing, and you're listening to that, and hear me, friend, you are following through on the action, well, life will change for the better because as you hear this divine guidance and move forward, that is the evolutionary step. So evolving means I'm doing it differently than I did it before. And so if you keep doing the same things over and over and over and you're having no joy and life seems to be frustrating all the time, then something needs to change. So your heart is open and loving means I listen and I move forward. And that is a very, very important part of being open and loving because you want to move forward with a lot of faith, knowing you're okay in and of yourself. So, so important. Remember, being about your joy is a wonderful indication. And Dave says, about how to be you're in your joy when you lose track of time doing it. And, you feel better afterwards rather than worse.
Yeah, that's a good asterisk on that. You
Yeah.
know, you can sit there and binge watch TV on Netflix all day, but at the end and lose track of time. I don't think that's necessarily what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Because you don't feel good about yourself after that. You might lose track of time finding your way at the bottom of a pint of Ben and Jerry's, but you definitely don't feel good about yourself on the other side of that.
Yes, exactly.
But when if I were to sit down and compose and 4 hours later and I'm like, wow, I feel really good. Or dancing lessons or pottery, you're like, wow. And for me as a creative person, I tend to gravitate towards things where I make something, like I create something. And I think, I feel like you're kind of the same way.
Yeah, well, I think second and fourth chakra too are very related, right? First and third, second and fourth.
Can you unpack? Can you just what those are for in case any of our listeners?
Yeah. So the second chakra is all about creation, right? It's our life center. It's a creation. So it's the center of your sexual organs, right? So it's all creative energy lives there. The ability to write, to compose, anything you're creating is second chakra, and fourth chakra is heart. Right. So second and fourth are very closely related. So very often, if you are in creation, you're accessing the heart. It's why so many artists I know are so loving. They're always creating and they're always connecting with their heart space. So yeah, second and fourth, go together a lot. And being open, I want to give a kind of real world example of a time when I had an opportunity to be in a situation that was potentially difficult, and it was several years ago, and it was after the Pulse shooting, simply because I was kind of thrust into situations I had not been in before, leading prayers at community meetings, at city councils, at, different faith centers and things of that nature. And I also, during the midst of all that, met with the then governor,
Rick Scott.
Rick Scott.
Yeah. Now Senator Rick Scott.
Now Senator Rick Scott. Yeah, I met with the then Governor Rick Scott. Now, Rick Scott and I have different opinions on almost everything. But as I entered into a conversation with him, and he came to town right after the shooting, which I applauded him for doing. But we were having meetings, and he was meeting with several local clergy, and he met with me and said, was really, he said, I want to help. I just don't know. I mean, basically I want to help, but I'm not sure, what to do next. Anyway, I won't share the contents of the meeting necessarily, but I entered that. I'll tell you what I said. The first thing I said is, I'm not here to make you wrong. I'm here to thank you for being here. And well, that shifted the whole room. I mean, there were a couple politicians, his chief of staff. I said, I am grateful you're here and I'd love to talk to you. I'm honored that that you asked. So my heart really was open and loving. One, that was such a difficult time for the city of Orlando, and you know, a few of the survivors were from our ministry. Several people in our ministry had worked there. Certainly, many members of our ministry had been at polls. Only a few were there that night, but it really impacted so many people I knew personally. One of our members, his husband was shot 12 times and killed. So I was, right in the middle of that. And because it was so close to home, my heart was just so open. And I think the whole city's was. Mm-hmm. And there were several instances around that where I was meeting people that, in the past, I may not have been as open and loving. But I think what happened with that shooting is that people saw how destructive hate can be. And it was so up close and so personal that I think we were all repulsed, angered, saddened. We were in disbelief. And so the idea that we could be in a room with somebody we disagreed with and not instantly make them wrong, I think was a learning for a lot of people.
Well, and I think that it created a point that people from all spectrum of politics or beliefs or religion or whatever, it created a fixed point where everyone could say, this is an evil thing. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes.
And so everybody was pointed in the same direction mm-hmm. for a moment in time.
Yes.
And we see that around tragedies, whether it's natural disasters or whether it's 9/11, whatever. I mean,
well, we see it from most people. Like the last show we were talking? Oh no, this beginning of the show about Puerto Rico and the hurricane. Mm-hmm. I was so surprised at the lack of compassion. From our own president. It's unbelievable.
I need to believe that this is an outlier.
Yes. Oh, exactly. I think so.
Because no other administration, not to get all political, but no other administration has shown that type of callousness towards any tragedy. And so I need to believe in the consistency of the human spirit,
No, I get it. Well, our current president is a wonderful example of somebody who it's hard to look at and remain open and loving, because of the policies, the lack of respect, the list goes on and on. So, again, when I see somebody doing things I don't agree with, it doesn't mean I want to hate them, because that just adds to the negative energy.
That's right.
And again, and also what's involved in this whole picture, we haven't talked about it a lot. I talked a little bit about in the soul work sessions that when we can love in a situation that's not loving, we are healing our own karma and setting up better karma for the future, because we are proving ourselves worthy to receive more spiritual insight and development, because we're not reacting or even overreacting, as I think so many people are doing right now. There's certainly plenty to react about, but there seems to be some idea that if we don't react in anger, that somehow we're passive. Responding with an open and loving heart is super, super important to moving the whole consciousness forward.
That's right.
So instead of reacting in anger and closing down, which is what the human response wants to be, is totally normal. But if we do that, we're not helping humanity as a whole evolve. And so, friends, this is what this is all about. Remember, the series is called 7 Signs of an Evolving Soul. And as we individually evolve, we are connecting with the collective. So very, very important to remember.
Yeah, and if you completely shut down hope.
Exactly.
Meeting with Rick Scott, if you had just gone, no, that guy voted against everything that I've ever wanted in gay rights or whatever, then there's no...
environment too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've totally shut down any hope. And so
Yes.
by showing up and saying, I disagree, but I'm here, let's talk,
Yes.
that at least gets that giant boulder moving just a little bit.
Correct. Correct. And again, we're here to be change agents, not only for our own lives, but for the collective. This statement, and I said it when we had Jacqueline Freeman on, and it's been ringing in my soul to really work with. I said that so often in America, we have rigid individualism where we're only worried about ourselves and forgetting the collective. And in truth, when you live from the soul, you're always always know that that everything you do on the individual level is impacting the collective. And so one of the reasons we want to love ourselves, one of the reasons we want our heart to be open and loving is so we positively impact the movement of consciousness on planet Earth. And so it's not just for me in my little life, for me in my family's life, whatever. It's about me and humanity itself. And whether we are conscious of that or not, that's the role of every soul. We are, I guess, astrologically, which is a little dangerous for me to say because I don't know a lot about it, but I know in astrology, we are in the age of Aquarius, which means we are here to become our own master. So, right, meaning we're mastering our human lower nature so the divine can rise up. So that's what is trying to happen collectively. So when I, as a soul, individually know, okay, I'm loving myself. All right, my heart is open and loving, and I seek, situations to do this. Then I know I'm helping the consciousness wake up on planet Earth, right? So this sounds simple. My heart is open and loving, but it has tremendous, tremendous impact in our world. Tremendous impact in our world. Yeah.
It gets into some quantum theory stuff as well.
Totally. That's all quantum theory.
And thoughts having weight and all of that. Yeah.
And they certainly do. I did a workshop with Cassandra a while back, and it was a chakra workshop, and with the heart opening, there are a couple exercises, and I want to just mention them. Usually by the end, I want to give you at least one little to-do, which is not little at all, but one to-do. One is there are exercises you can do physically to open the heart chakra, and one is literally just to hug yourself at the level of the heart. And it helps if you also do it with heart opening music, beautiful kind of romantic kind of music. Romantic might not be the right word, but
I'm thinking Tchaikovsky and Romeo and Juliet.
That would be fine.
Oh yeah.
There's I was trying to think of a good recording of this, but anyway, you just figure out your own music. I love you, I bless you, but you can figure that out. So it's to hug yourself, and then another way is to be on the floor where you're actually putting your back up. So it's like you're kind of in a crouched position, kind of hugging yourself, and then moving your arms to the side, and it opens the back of your heart chakra as well. So your heart being open and loving for some of us is learned. And the heart chakra is obviously at the level of the heart. It's the fourth chakra. And so not only does love live there, also grief lives there. And so sometimes when we begin to open the heart, sometimes we have tears. So I want to just tell you, if that happens, you're on the right track. That can be very healing, because sometimes we need to cry to open the heart. Sometimes we've held energy in, or we've held in our grief, or we've held in our sadness or anger or whatever. And we, just with the intention of opening our hearts, sometimes we will cry, and that's a wonderful release. So I want to encourage you, friends. I'm going to remind you again of number one. Number one of our 7 signs of an evolving soul. Number one is you love yourself. Number 2 that we covered today is your heart is open and loving. And I want to encourage you to, even in your time of meditation, to think about opening this chakra, and also focus on opening this heart chakra by doing some of those exercises, and remembering too, when you're in creation mode, as Dave mentioned, when you're in creation mode, you're often contacting the heart chakra, second and fourth chakra working together to open the heart and lift the spirit. So your heart is open and loving is our topic for today. So we thank you for joining us today. As always, we bless you on the journey, dear friend, and we are so grateful that you listen multiple times, and that then you share with people in your life that you love, so that you can talk about it and learn and grow together. So
yeah, and we will have links to part 1 of this. It was last week, but we will have links to that in our show notes that you can check out at experienceofthesoul.com.
All right, blessings, friends. We'll see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by CCU Orlando. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, and J.J. Hamilton. If you would like to help be a part of bringing shows like this and other programs to the channel, please consider becoming a patron. You can learn more about supporting the channel, along with show notes and information about our other programs at experienceofthesoul.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast, you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, or the platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.